everyone, this is Carson Composes, and this is a showcase of my track Hookmaw for the game Tidetale. Now, this is a very basic overview of how I structure my projects, how I think about things, and what my thought process is by adding instruments or making the decisions I do in terms of composition or styling to best fit Tidetale. I'm going to go through all the bits and pieces and show you what instrument plays what role in the overall song. This is the bass line, very simple. It's just doing this sort of ascending pattern, and it kind of walks up here and then gets all the way up here and drops back down to the root note. There's a little bit of variety here, but other than that, it does pretty much the same thing over and over again. There's some stuff happening over here. It changes, but other than that, it's a very simple thing. It's not meant to stand out. The bass obviously plays the role of making the track more full, giving it a bit of bounce, and also, of course, setting the root note, setting the tone. And similar to that, although it plays a bit more of an aesthetic role than anything else, is percussion. This is something I wanted to model the percussion after sort of the working class or shipwrights or fishermen, something that made you think of hardworking type people. And so I used a frame drum and these little ticky-tackies. It gives the idea that there's a certain amount of progression happening. There's things going on in the background. There's work being done because, you know, at the end of the day, the people of Hookmaw don't just lounge around. They have fish to catch. They have buildings to repair. They have laundry to fold. They have all sorts of different things to do. So all of these elements together create sort of the foundation of the track, right? The core on which everything else kind of rests. And I also have another element here, these strings, that are supposed to complement the bass and supposed to support it a bit. So you don't just have the bass to reference when you listen to the melody, because the melody works with the bass to harmonize, and that's where you get the music. So here is just very basic sounding strings. Not meant to stand out, obviously. This is probably the least recognizable element of the track. It's very much in the background, and it's going to remain such. It doesn't even get very busy. There's some very minor parts where it swells, but they're definitely not at all recognized. Yeah, right there, it's a bit of a swell, but other than that, there's very, very little that's going on with the strings. Same chords, same structure, just to give it some extra oomph, you know? All right, after that, I think the main melody is in order. So here is actually really interesting. I've got a layered instrument that I kind of thought of this folk guitar that was sort of cobbled together by the residents of Hookmaw. There's no art for it yet, but you can think in your head it might be some weird combination of a lyre and a banjo. So there's actually 3 layers to this. There's the harp that's actually treated to sound like a banjo. The strings are dampened, and that gives it this sound. It's a really interesting sound, and it stays in the background compared to these other elements, but it's still a very important layer because it gives it a sort of body. Then there's this, which is the main part of it, the banjo itself. This is an actual tenor banjo that was sampled. And after that, you've got this here, which I believe is a dulcimer. Yes, it's a dulcimer. And it's a very light layer sort of on the tip top here, you know. It's not meant to stand out entirely. It's supposed to sort of blend into the others. So ultimately, when everything's one layer, it sounds like one, maybe two instruments, you know? That's what I really like about it, is it gives the whole melody a sort of character that just one of them on their own might not be able to achieve. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the accordions here. So I've got a modulation to make sure they don't get too loud or too quiet at parts. And it modulates them for me so that I don't have to play it live, and it becomes less intense or more intense as I need it to, like this. With this instrument, I wanted to definitely follow the rule of less is more. So it does not play, obviously, a very heavy role as much as this main melody does. And there's a very big reason for that, is because if you have a lot of very unique elements all trying to play together, and they're trying to play in the same register or in the same frequency range, you know, a violin and a guitar playing at like a higher register are going to be, you know, sharing the same band of frequencies. They're both higher pitched. And so it can get a little messy if you have them both doing unique things. So one of them has to take the back seat, right? Or in this case, the banjo is sort of taking up real estate here in this melody range, in this what is it? I think it's C4. Let's see. Yeah, it's around C4. So, but you know, if you listen here, this is in a similar. Yeah, I think that's identical. I think that's C4. Yeah, it takes up the same general real estate in terms of range, pitch, frequency, that kind of thing. So you can't have them taking up too much space, because that's going to muddy the rest of your track, right? So I've made the accordion dip in and out, right, in terms of intensity, so that you can listen to the main melody, and then when the melody gets a little bit more simple, it starts to make way for the accordion at times. Especially here, like right this part right here. They're sort of trading the spotlight, right? In opera, that's a very common thing, where you're going to have two parts that alternate, and they give each other space. That's called a call and response. And that is a very simple way to have two distinct instruments in the same track, in the same measure. And I do the same somewhat, not quite, with the fiddle later on, but I will cover that soon. So, last but not least, we've got the guitar here. So that is actually taking up a little bit lower real estate. I guess that's just what we're calling it now, is real estate. But actually, you know what? No, it's taking up pretty much the same thing. Oh well. Actually, I don't think that's it. I don't think that is not C5. That is not C5. Unless I'm just dead. Unless I'm brain dead. Last time I checked, that was not C5. But, okay. Regardless, each instrument likes to be wonky in its own way. So, this is obviously doing its own thing. It's keeping in line with the chords. It's not veering too much one way or the other. It's supporting the rest of the song, right? Because it's ultimately not the center of attention. But this later part, I do give it the center of attention. Ultimately, you can have a lot of different things going on in a track, but trying to cram them all in one area is going to be very stressful. It's going to cause your mix to muddy. It's going to cause a whole lot of pain for very little gain. So ultimately, if you want to have a lot of different instruments, a lot of different ideas, you have to pick your battles. You have to sacrifice things here and there to better your track. And I've been learning this over the years. Less is truly more. All right, now we can talk about this fiddle part over here. So for those of you who don't know, the original creator of this IP was called Kabuski, right? And he originally was the one that got myself, Void Soul, Epix Ninja, Mebi, all on the project. He has since passed it on to us to continue, but he originally asked when I said, what do you want in this track? He said, I want it to sound like a sea shanty. I want there to be a fiddle. I want there to be a guitar, all that. And so I tried to deliver as best I could. I had been looking at this one library that you see here, Celtic Era, because I wanted this fiddle sound. Because it was the only fiddle sound that was somewhat within my price range that actually sounded really nice. And it absolutely does. It sounds like an actual fiddle player. If you didn't know it was sampled and, spliced back together in FL Studio, you would probably never guess. Or maybe you would. Maybe you just have an ear for that kind of thing. So I have it doing an interesting thing here. It shares some of the same notes with the main melody, and that was not on purpose. I was just kind of, putting down notes willy-nilly because I just wanted to get something out of my head and onto the paper, so to speak. So what you see here is not really necessarily the best music theory. Like this right here, I could be doing a harmony, but they're just doing the same note. That's it's not a cardinal sin, but I could definitely be doing something different. But I don't know. It turned out to be a sort of melody or harmony, I suppose, that I liked. These two kind of fading in and out, kind of doing their own thing and then coming back to the same note every now and then. Right there, too. Who knows? Maybe I might edit it to sound a bit more harmonic, to harmonize better with the main melody. Who knows? I might take the main melody out, but that's for the future to determine. That is Hookmaw for you. This is the first time I have done one of these music process videos. I'm not very good at formatting them, but I figured I'd just wing it and let you guys give me feedback on what you want to see more of. If you want to see more of these types of videos, let me know. If you want to see something like analysis of other game music, or if you want me to, like I mentioned in that poll earlier, covers of other songs. I have plenty that I could upload. I probably will, even if people aren't necessarily as interested. But I think that's a wrap. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to message me on Discord at Carson Composes, or any comments in the YouTube section would be most appreciated. Thank you for listening and watching, and have a great rest of your day.